My name is Robert Whitaker. I'm 68 years old, and I live in Akron, Ohio. That old landline in our bedroom had been silent for years, until it started ringing at 1:12 a.m. sharp every single night, and the man on the other end wasn't dialing the wrong number. I spent 41 years as a welder and union steward at Goodyear, got the scars on my forearms to prove it. Bought this brick house with Ellen in 1979 when mortgage rates were criminal and our daughter Sarah was still in diapers. 3 bedrooms, 1-car garage, quarter-acre lot. Nothing fancy, but it was ours. For decades, that phone on the nightstand barely rang after 10 o'clock. Maybe a wrong number once a year. Maybe my brother called from Florida forgetting the time difference. But mostly, silence. Then 3 weeks ago, everything changed. The first call came at 1:12 a.m. on a Tuesday. I know the exact time because the red numbers on the clock radio were the only light in the room. That ring cut through the dark like a knife. Ellen shot up fast, faster than I'd seen her move in years, and grabbed the receiver before the second ring finished. Hello? Her voice was tight, alert, a pause. Then she whispered, "Wrong number," and hung up. She rolled back over, pulled the blanket to her chin, and within 2 minutes her breathing went steady again. I lay there staring at the ceiling, heart still thumping. 42 years of marriage, and I'd never seen her move like that, like she'd been waiting for it. The next night, same time, 1:12 a.m., exactly. This time she had the phone in her hand before the first ring finished. Same whispered conversation, same wrong number, same quick return to sleep. By the 4th night I started asking questions over breakfast. "Are you getting a lot of wrong numbers lately?" She didn't look up from her coffee. Telemarketers, robocalls. You know how it is. At 1 in the morning, they call from overseas, different time zones. Her voice was calm, too calm, the kind of calm you practice. By the end of week 1, she'd moved the phone to her side of the bed, said the ringer was too loud and didn't want it waking me up. She turned the volume down to almost nothing, just loud enough for her to hear. I'm not a suspicious man by nature. 42 years with someone, you build trust like you build a house, foundation first. But I also spent 4 decades in a union hall learning to read people, learning when someone was feeding you a line. And Ellen was feeding me a line. The calls kept coming, every single night, 1:12 a.m. without fail. And every time, she'd whisper into that phone, hang up fast, and pretend to fall back asleep while I lay there in the dark, listening to my own heartbeat, wondering what the hell was happening in my own bedroom. Then came the night I got to the phone first. 42 years of marriage teaches you the difference between a mistake and a cover story told too many times. Ellen started sleeping differently, closer to the phone, one arm stretched out even in deep sleep, like she was standing guard. I'd wake up at midnight, at 12:30, and see her lying there with her eyes closed but her hand resting on the receiver, waiting. During the day she acted normal, made her Tuesday bridge club, watched her cooking shows, talked about Sarah's kids like nothing had changed. But at night, everything was different. She'd come to bed earlier than usual, always before me, always positioned on her side, the phone within easy reach. I'm not a man who makes accusations without evidence. Spent too many years negotiating contracts, sitting across tables from people trying to bluff their way through bad deals. You learn patience. You learn to watch and wait. So I watched. Week 2, I started noticing small things. How she'd tense up around 12:45, like her body had set an internal alarm. How her breathing would change just before 1:12, getting shallower, more alert. How after she hung up, she'd lie perfectly still for exactly 3 minutes before letting herself relax again. One morning over eggs and toast, I tried a different approach. "Did you sleep okay last night?" "Fine." She buttered her toast in neat, even strokes. "I thought I heard the phone. Just another wrong number. I barely remember it. But I'd been awake. I'd heard her voice through the receiver, low and urgent, though I couldn't make out the words. That wasn't someone annoyed by a telemarketer. That was someone having a conversation. Maybe we should just unplug it at night," I suggested. Her hand stopped mid-stroke. just for a second. Then she smiled. And miss a call from Sarah? You know she worries when she can't reach us. Sarah lived in Columbus. Sarah called our cell phones. Sarah hadn't used the landline in 5 years. That afternoon, I checked the phone bill online. I'm not tech savvy, but I can navigate a website when I need to. The incoming calls section showed multiple entries marked private number and blocked caller. Whoever was calling knew enough to hide their identity. Smart. That night I lay in the dark, watching the clock. 12:47, 12:58, 1:03. Ellen's breathing changed at 1:08. She was awake, I was certain of it, but she kept her eyes closed, her body still. At 1:12 the phone gave its muffled ring. She grabbed it on the first trill. Hello? A whisper. Then, yes, okay, I know. Pause. I said I know. She hung up, stayed frozen for those same 3 minutes. Then her shoulders dropped, and sleep took her again. I stared at the dark ceiling until dawn, my mind turning over every possibility. An affair was the obvious answer, but Ellen was 66. We'd been together since we were kids. She had bad knees and complained about her back after 30 minutes of gardening. But people surprise you. That's something else 40 years in a union hall teaches you. The quiet ones, the loyal ones, they're capable of things you'd never imagine when they decide the rules don't apply to them anymore. By week 3, I'd stopped sleeping entirely. Just lay there each night, waiting for 1:12, listening to her whispered responses, trying to piece together what was being said on the other end of that line. He didn't say hello, didn't say goodbye, just those 6 words that turned my whole life into one long question. It was a Thursday. I remember because Thursdays I used to help sort donated tools at the community center, but I'd called in that morning, too tired to function. 3 weeks of broken sleep had worn me down to nothing. My hands shook when I poured coffee. My thoughts moved through mud. Ellen went to bed at 10:30 as usual. I stayed up watching a documentary about Normandy, not really seeing it, just letting the images wash over me while I waited. At 11:15, I turned off the TV and headed upstairs. She was already positioned on her side, phone within reach, breathing the slow rhythm of someone pretending to sleep. I know that rhythm now. It was slightly too controlled, too even. I climbed into bed and lay there in the dark, watching those red numbers on the clock radio. At 12:58, her breathing shifted, got shallower. I felt the mattress tense beneath me as her muscles tightened. 1:08. She was coiled like a spring. At 1:11, I moved my hand slowly across the blanket, inch by inch, until my fingers touched the phone's base. The ring came at 1:12 exactly. I grabbed the receiver and had it to my ear before Ellen could even lift her head. Hello? There was a pause. Half a second of confusion from the other end. Then a man's voice, calm and confident. The voice of someone who expected to be talking to someone else. Tell her the room is booked at the Holiday Inn on State Route 8. Same time tomorrow. Click. The line went dead. I held the receiver against my ear, listening to the dial tone, my heart hammering so hard I thought it might crack a rib. Ellen was sitting up now. I could feel her eyes on me in the darkness, but I didn't move, didn't look at her. Just kept that phone pressed to my ear like I was still listening, like maybe if I held on long enough, I'd hear something that would make this make sense. Bob? Her voice was small, uncertain. I slowly lowered the phone back to its cradle and lay back down, stared at the ceiling. The shadows from the streetlight made patterns up there, familiar patterns I'd seen 10,000 nights. But tonight they looked different, foreign. Who was that? I asked. I don't know. Wrong number. He asked me to tell you something. Silence, long and heavy. He said the room is booked. Holiday Inn on State Route 8. More silence. Then Ellen rolled over, her back to me. I don't know what that means. But her breathing had changed again. Not the fake sleep rhythm, not the waiting rhythm. This was something new. This was the breathing of someone who'd just been caught and was trying to figure out what to say next. I lay there for 6 hours, not moving, not sleeping, just replaying those words over and over. Tell her the room is booked. Not wrong number. Not sorry, my mistake. Tell her. He knew she wouldn't be the one answering. He knew someone else might pick up. And he wanted them to know, wanted me to know. By the time the sun came up, I understood one thing with absolute certainty. This wasn't going to stop until I made it stop. I made breakfast, like always. 2 eggs were easy for me, scrambled for her, toast with butter, orange juice in the small glasses with the blue flowers she'd bought at an estate sale in 1987. Everything is exactly the same as 42 years of mornings before. Ellen came down at 7:15, wearing her pink bathrobe and slippers. Her hair was pulled back. Her face looked older in the morning light filtering through the kitchen window. "Sleep okay?" I asked, sliding her plate across the table. "Fine." She picked up her fork. "You?" Like a rock. The lie sat between us like a third person at the table. I ate slowly, watching her from the corner of my eye. She cut her eggs into small pieces, chewed carefully, took sips of coffee between bites. Normal. Everything normal. Except her hands trembled just slightly when she lifted her cup. "Think I'll run some errands today," she said. "Need anything from the store?" "We're good. I might stop by Sarah's. She's been asking me to help organize the garage." Sarah lived in Columbus, 90 minutes away. She'd never asked for help with a garage in her life. "That's nice of you," I said. Ellen nodded and took another bite of eggs. I finished my breakfast, rinsed my plate, and went out to the garage like I did most mornings. Pretended to organize my toolbox, moved wrenches from one drawer to another, wiped down surfaces that were already clean. Through the small window, I watched Ellen's car back out of the driveway at 8:40. I stood there for a long time after she was gone, holding a socket wrench, staring at nothing. The next few days passed in a fog. We moved around each other like dancers who'd learned the steps too well. Dinner at 6, news at 7, bed by 10:30, and every night at 1:12 a.m., that phone would ring and Ellen would grab it before I could move. But I was listening now, really listening. "Yes," she'd whisper. "Tomorrow. I know. Same time. Always the same." Always those careful, clipped responses that gave nothing away. During the day, I'd catch her staring out windows, her coffee going, cold in her hand. Or she'd be watching TV and I'd ask her a question and she wouldn't hear me the first time, lost somewhere in her own thoughts. At the hardware store on Tuesday, I ran into Tom Mercer, worked the line with me for 20 years. He asked how retirement was treating me, and I said fine, everything's fine, while my mind was somewhere else entirely. "You look tired, Bob," he said. "Not sleeping great. Getting old does that." He clapped me on the shoulder. "Tell Ellen I said hello." I nodded and moved past him toward the paint aisle, not needing paint, just needing to be away from questions I couldn't answer. That night, I lay in bed and watched Ellen sleep, or pretend to sleep, and I thought about all the years behind us, the house we'd built together, the daughter we'd raised, the routines and rhythms and small kindnesses that make up a marriage, and I thought about that man's voice on the phone, so calm and sure, like he had every right to be calling my house at 1:12 in the morning. Tell her the room is booked. The anger was starting to build now, slow and steady, like metal heating in a forge. I could feel it in my chest, in my jaw, in the way my hands wanted to curl into fists. But I kept it down, kept it quiet, because before I did anything, I needed to know everything. You spend 42 years with someone. You know their patterns like you know your own pulse. When those patterns shift, even slightly, you feel it in your bones. Ellen started wearing perfume again, not the white diamonds she'd used for 20 years. The bottle I bought her every Christmas because it was safe, familiar, hers. This was something new, something floral and expensive smelling that I'd catch in the hallway after she left for work. I noticed it on a Monday morning. She came down for breakfast and the scent hit me before she reached the kitchen. Light, but deliberate. The kind of perfume you don't put on to run errands or sit at a desk processing insurance claims. "That's different," I said. She poured her coffee. "What is?" "The perfume. Sarah gave it to me for my birthday. I thought I should use it. Her birthday was in March. This was October. Then came the phone. Ellen had used the same 4-digit passcode since we got our first smartphones. Our anniversary, 0814. Simple, easy to remember. But one evening I borrowed her phone to look up a hardware store's closing time, and when I entered the code, it didn't work. "Hey, what's your passcode?" I called into the living room. A pause. Then, oh, I changed it. Security reasons. All those news stories about hackers. She came in, took the phone, entered 6 digits I couldn't see, and handed it back with the browser already open to the store listing. There you go. The next week, she started staying late at work. Not every day, but 2 or 3 times a week. She'd call around 5:30, the landline, never my cell, and tell me she had paperwork to finish, a meeting that ran long, a filing, deadline she couldn't miss. Don't wait on dinner, she'd say. I'll grab something on the way home. She'd walk in around 8:30, smelling like that new perfume, her makeup still fresh, not a hair out of place, not like someone who'd been hunched over insurance forms for 3 extra hours. I'd be in my recliner watching the Guardians game or reading the paper, and I'd look up and see her standing in the doorway, purse still on her shoulder, and something in her expression would catch, just for a second, like she'd forgotten which version of herself she was supposed to be. Long day? I'd ask. You have no idea. She'd kick off her shoes and head upstairs, but the calls kept coming. Every single night, 1:12 a.m., and every single night Ellen would answer before the second ring, whisper her terse responses, and hang up within 30 seconds. I started marking them on a calendar I kept in my nightstand drawer, just small pencil marks in the corner of each date. 15 straight nights, then 20, then 25. One morning, I found a receipt in her coat pocket while I was hanging it up. She'd left it on the back of a kitchen chair. Dry cleaning for a blue dress, $42. We hadn't been anywhere that required dry cleaning in 6 months. I put the receipt back exactly where I found it. That afternoon, I sat in the garage and made a list in my head. The perfume, the phone, the late nights, the dress, the calls, each thing small enough to explain away on its own, but together they formed a picture I didn't want to see. I thought about confronting her, demanding answers, laying it all out like union negotiation. Here's the evidence, now give me the truth. But something stopped me. Maybe it was pride, maybe it was fear of what I'd hear, or maybe, after 42 years, I'd earned the right to know everything before I said anything. So I decided to wait, to watch, to gather facts the way I'd done 1,000 times on the shop floor when management tried to pull something. You don't walk into a negotiation half prepared. You walk in knowing more than the other side thinks you know. And right now, Ellen thought I didn't know anything at all. The electronics store sat in a strip mall off Market Street, wedged between a dollar store and a vacant space that used to be a Blockbuster. I hadn't been inside in years. Used to shop there for batteries and extension cords back when I still worked. The kid behind the counter couldn't have been more than 25, earbuds in, scrolling his phone, barely looked up when I walked in. Help you find something? I need a digital recorder. Something simple. He pulled one earbud out. Like for meetings? Something like that. He led me to a locked case near the back, pulled out a small gray device about the size of a deck of cards. This one's popular. Voice activated. Holds about 100 hours, $40. I need it to record phone calls too. He scratched his chin. You'll need an adapter for that. Plugs into the phone line, connects to the recorder. Probably another 15. Is that legal? He shrugged. In Ohio, you can record your own phone calls without telling the other person. One-party consent state. I looked it up for a customer last month. I bought both. Paid cash. The kid barely glanced at me as he bagged everything up. Back home, I waited until Ellen left for her late meeting, the third one that week. Then I went to work. The adapter was simple enough. 2 prongs that plugged into the phone jack. A thin cord that ran to the recorder. I set the whole thing up inside the nightstand drawer on my side of the bed, the recorder wedged behind a box of tissues where Ellen would never look. I tested it once with my cell phone, calling the landline from the garage, played it back, clear as day. That night, I lay in bed, heart thumping, waiting. Ellen came home at 8:45, ate leftover meatloaf standing at the counter, took a shower, and climbed into bed by 10:15. At 1:12 a.m., the phone rang. Ellen grabbed it. Hello? I could hear the faint buzz of a voice on the other end, too quiet to make out. Yes, Ellen whispered. Tomorrow, I know. Another buzz. Room 214, yes. I'll bring the blue dress. She hung up. The room went silent except for the sound of her breathing and the distant hum of the refrigerator downstairs. I didn't move, didn't let on that I'd heard anything different than the 27 nights before. The next morning I waited until Ellen's car disappeared down the street. Then I pulled the recorder from the drawer, plugged in the little earbuds the kid had thrown in for free, and pressed play. The voice came through crystal clear this time. Deep, confident, mid-40s I'd guess. The kind of voice that's used to getting what it wants. Tomorrow night, same time. Ellen. Yes, tomorrow, I know. Room 214. And bring the blue dress. You know the one. Room 214. Yes, I'll bring the blue dress. Click. I played it 3 more times. Sat there at the kitchen table with cold coffee in front of me, listening to my wife agree to meet another man in a hotel room. Her voice so calm and practiced it was clear. This wasn't the first time they'd had this exact conversation. The blue dress, the dry cleaning receipt I'd found, it all lined up. I ejected the earbuds and sat in the quiet house, the morning sun coming through the window over the sink, hitting the same spot it had hit for 42 years. Everything looked the same, but nothing was. I still had connections from my union days, people who knew people, guys who could find things out if you asked the right way. But I didn't need connections for this. I just needed patience and a memory that still worked. Ellen had worked at Midwest Mutual Insurance for 32 years, started as a claims clerk, worked her way up to senior processor. She'd brought home the company directory every year for as long as I could remember. Thick, spiral-bound books with everyone's name, extension, and department. I found last year's copy on the shelf in the basement office, under a stack of old tax returns. It took me 20 minutes to go through it page by page. There were 247 employees listed. I wrote down every mobile number from the management section, then compared them against what I could hear on the recordings. The cadence, the tone, trying to match a voice to a name. Nothing definitive yet. So I tried something else. I drove to the library on East Avenue, the same one I'd taken Sarah to when she was little, checking out picture books about construction equipment and dinosaurs. Now it had computers, rows of them, free internet if you had a library card. The librarian, a woman about Ellen's age with reading glasses on a chain, helped me set up, showed me how to use a reverse phone lookup site. I typed in what numbers I could extract from the blocked calls. Prepaid mobile, no registered owner. Billing address led to a P.O. box in Cuyahoga Falls. Dead end. But prepaid phones have to be purchased somewhere, and people who buy them usually aren't careful about everything. I went home and pulled out Ellen's last 3 credit card statements. I'd been managing our finances since I retired. She'd been happy to hand it over and said it was one less thing to worry about. No phone purchases, nothing unusual except the dry cleaning charge I'd already seen. Then I checked her work email. She'd left her laptop open on the kitchen counter that morning, password already entered, screen just sleeping. All I had to do was tap the spacebar. I'm not proud of it, but I did it anyway. Scrolled back 3 months. Most of it was work stuff, policy updates, claim reviews, meeting reminders. Then I found a folder labeled Personal. Inside were 24 emails, all from the same sender, Victor Lang, her supervisor, the man who'd been at the company for 15 years, who'd hosted the office party when she won Employee of the Year last spring, who'd sent her flowers when her mother passed away 2 years ago. I clicked on the oldest email, looking forward to tomorrow night. You know where. Ellen's. Response. I'll be there. I clicked another. The usual room is available. I made sure of it. Ellen. Thank you. See you soon. Another. Bring the blue dress. You look incredible in it. Ellen. I will. I sat there reading through months of messages. Nothing explicit. Nothing that spelled it out in plain language. But the pattern was clear. The routine was clear. And the phone number in Victor Lang's employee profile. The mobile line listed for after-hours emergencies. When I called it from a payphone later that day, I recognized the voice immediately when he answered. It was him. I hung up without saying a word. Victor Lang, 52 years old according to his profile, married, 3 kids, living in a split-level ranch in Fairlawn, calling my wife every single night to confirm their next meeting while I slept 3 feet away. I gripped the edge of the sink until my knuckles went white. 42 years. And it came down to this. I didn't turn on any lights. I just sat in my recliner in the living room and watched the darkness settle in around me. The recorder in my hand, thumb resting on the play button. Outside, the streetlight cast long shadows across the front lawn. A car drove past, then another. The normal sounds of a Thursday evening in a quiet neighborhood where people had been living their ordinary lives for 30, 40 years. I pressed play. Room 214, and bring the blue dress. You know the one. Room 214. Yes, I'll bring the blue dress. I let it play through. Then I rewound it and played it again. By the fifth time, I wasn't really hearing the words anymore. I was just listening to her voice, the steadiness of it, the lack of hesitation. This wasn't confusion or coercion or anything she'd been trapped into. This was comfortable, routine, agreement. I thought about our wedding day, August 14th, 1982. She wore a simple white dress her mother had altered. I wore a suit I'd borrowed from my cousin. We got married at St. Paul's, had the reception in the church basement with ham sandwiches and a sheet cake. 27 people showed up. We honeymooned in Put-in-Bay for 3 days, shared a cottage that smelled like mildew and had a window that wouldn't close all the way. We didn't care. We were 26 years old and certain we'd figured out something the rest of the world hadn't. 42 years ago, I thought about the early years, the apartment on Brown Street where we lived before Sarah was born. Ellen worked days at the insurance company. I worked swing shift at the plant. We'd pass each other coming and going, leave notes on the counter, steal an hour together on weekends. When Sarah came along, I picked up overtime, worked doubles, sometimes triples when they'd let me. Ellen stayed home those first 5 years, and I'd come through the door at midnight to find her asleep on the couch with Sarah in her arms, both of them peaceful and safe. I worked for that. I burned my hands and my back and knees for that, bought this house for that. I thought about the lean years in the 90s when Goodyear started cutting shifts, how we ate spaghetti 4 nights a week and Ellen clipped coupons, and we made it work, because that's what you did. You didn't complain. You didn't quit. You pushed through. I thought about the night Sarah graduated high school, how Ellen cried in the parking lot afterward, mascara running down her face, saying she couldn't believe our baby was grown, how I held her and promised things would be okay. We'd figure out the next chapter together. All those years, all those moments, all that work. And now I was sitting alone in the dark, listening to her make plans to meet another man in a hotel room while I slept in the bed we'd shared for 4 decades. The anger was there, hot and sharp like molten steel, but underneath it was something worse. Grief. The kind of grief you feel when someone dies, except the person isn't gone. They're just not who you thought they were. The woman I'd loved since we were kids, the woman I'd built a life with, she'd disappeared somewhere along the way and left behind someone I didn't recognize. The clock on the mantel read 2:47 a.m. I sat there until the sun came up, the recorder silent in my hand, the house empty around me even though Ellen was asleep upstairs. And I made a decision. I wasn't going to yell, wasn't going to beg, wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of seeing me broken. I was going to find out exactly what was happening, every detail, every lie, every moment of betrayal. And then I was going to decide what came next. I gave it 3 more days, not because I was afraid, not because I was hoping I'd somehow gotten it wrong. I knew exactly what I'd found and what it meant. But 42 years of marriage deserved more than a blindside attack in the heat of anger. It deserved to be handled right, calmly, with the kind of control that comes from knowing you hold all the cards. So I waited for Saturday. Ellen spent the morning at the grocery store, came home and made her tuna casserole for dinner like she did most Saturday nights. We ate at 6, talked about Sarah's youngest starting soccer, about the leaves that needed raking, about whether we should get the gutters cleaned before winter. Normal conversation, ordinary life. Her sitting 3 feet away, fork in hand, acting like everything was fine while I knew every detail of what she'd been doing for 8 months. After dinner, she loaded the dishwasher and I went to the living room. Sat in my recliner with the recorder in my shirt pocket, waiting. She came in around 7:30, drying her hands on a kitchen towel. "Think I'll watch some of that baking show," she said, reaching for the remote. "Sit down first." Something in my voice made her stop. The towel was still in her hands. "What's wrong?" "Just sit down, Ellen." She lowered herself onto the couch, the towel folded in her lap now, her eyes searching my face for clues. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the recorder, set it on the coffee table between us. "What's that?" "You'll see." I stood up, went to the kitchen, and poured 2 glasses of iced tea. I took my time, added ice cubes one by one, the sound of them clinking against the glass echoing in the quiet house. When I came back, she was staring at the recorder like it was a snake coiled on the table. I handed her a glass, set mine down, sat back in my recliner, and looked at her. "I want you to listen to something. Bob, I don't... Just listen." I pressed play. Victor Lang's voice filled the room, clear and unmistakable. "Tomorrow night, same time." Ellen's face went white. Actually white, like all the blood had drained straight down into her feet. "Yes, tomorrow, I know." Her own voice now. That same practiced whisper I'd heard 27 times through the bedroom wall. "Room 214. And bring the blue dress. You know the one. Room 214. Yes, I'll bring the blue dress." Click. The silence that followed was absolute. No traffic outside. No ticking clock. Just Ellen staring at that recorder and me watching her face go through every stage of panic and calculation. "Bob." I held up one hand. "Not yet." I pressed play again. Let her hear it a second time. Victor's confident tone, her compliant responses, the ease of it, the routine. When it finished, she opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Her hands were shaking. The iced tea glass started to tip and she caught it, set it down hard on the coffee table, ice cubes rattling. "How long have you been recording?" Her voice was barely a whisper. "Long enough." "Bob, please, let me explain." "You'll get your chance," I said. "But first, I want you to understand something. I know everything, the emails, Victor Lang, the Holiday Inn on State Route 8, the blue dress, all of it." Her eyes filled with tears. I leaned forward. "Now you can explain." She tried to laugh first. That's what got me the most. A nervous, high-pitched sound that came out wrong, like she was trying to convince herself this was all some kind of misunderstanding that could be cleared up with the right explanation. "Bob, I can explain this. It's not what you think." "It's exactly what I think." The laugh died. She pressed her hands together, fingers laced tight, knuckles going white. "Those calls, they're just... Victor and I work on projects together. Sometimes we have to coordinate after hours. It's all completely professional." I pressed play again. "And bring the blue dress. You know the one." Her mouth snapped shut. "Does that sound professional to you?" I asked. She looked down at her hands. A tear rolled off her cheek and hit her knuckles. Then another. "How long have you known?" 3 weeks. Since the night I answered the phone and heard him tell me to give you a message." "Oh, God." She put her face in her hands. Her shoulders started shaking. I sat there and watched her cry. 42 years ago. If she'd cried like this, I would have gone to her, put my arm around her. I did everything I could to make it stop. But that was before. That was when I thought we were on the same side. "Ellen, look at me." She lifted her head, mascara running, face blotchy and red. For a moment, she looked like the 26-year-old girl I'd married, vulnerable and scared. Then I blinked and saw her again as she really was, a 66-year-old woman who'd been lying to me every single day for 8 months. "I need to hear it from you," I said. "All of it. The truth." "Bob, please." "The truth, Ellen." She pulled a tissue from the box on the end table, dabbed at her eyes, took a shaking breath. "It started about 6 weeks ago, late August." My chest tightened, but I kept my face neutral. 6 weeks. Not some brief mistake or moment of weakness. 6 weeks of deliberate, calculated deception. How? Victor and I were working late on the Hendricks account. Big commercial claim. We ordered dinner, worked until 9, and when we were done, he asked if I wanted to get a drink. "And you said yes." She nodded. "We went to that bar near the office, the one with the brick walls. We talked about work at first, then other things, His marriage? Ours? What about ours? She looked away. Bob, you have to understand. What did you tell him about our marriage? I said we'd grown apart, that we were more like roommates than husband and wife. The words hit like a punch, but I didn't let it show. Just sat there, hands on the armrests, watching her squirm. Go on. We met for drinks a few more times. Then in March, he kissed me in the parking lot, and I didn't stop him. And then what? He started calling. Late at night, after you were asleep, we'd talk for a few minutes. Make plans for hotel rooms. She flinched. Yes. How many times? Bob, how many times, Ellen? Her voice dropped to almost nothing. 15, maybe 20. 20 times. 20 times she'd gotten dressed, put on perfume, driven to a hotel, and spent hours with another man while I sat at home thinking she was working late or visiting Sarah or running errands. 20 times she'd come home and climb into bed beside me like nothing had happened. I stood up. I walked to the window, looked out at the street where we'd lived our entire married life. Keep talking. Victor would book the rooms under fake names, she said. Her voice had gone flat now, resigned, like she knew there was no way out except straight through. He'd use his personal credit card, not the company one. Cash sometimes. Whatever wouldn't leave a trail. Smart man. Bob, I'm not being sarcastic. I mean it. He thought it through, covered his tracks, bought a burner phone so the calls wouldn't show up on anyone's records. She nodded, still staring at her hands. The call's at 1:12, I said. Why that time? He knew you'd be asleep. Deep sleep. He said that was the safest window. Except I'm 68 years old. I don't sleep like I used to. I didn't know you were awake. No, you didn't. I turned from the window. The wrong number excuse. That was planned too? Yes. If you ever answered, or if I needed to answer in front of you, I'd just say wrong number and hang up. We practiced it. Like actors rehearsing a play. Like this was all just a performance, and I was the audience too stupid to notice the wires holding everything up. The blue dress, I said. The one you had dry cleaned. Victor likes it. He said it makes me look... She stopped. Makes you look what? Young. The word hung in the air between us. Young. Like she could put on a dress and drive to a hotel room and somehow erase 42 years of aging, of gravity, of time. Where were you going to go next week? I asked. Tuesday night? Same time? Room 214? Her eyes widened. How did you... I heard the whole conversation, Ellen. I've been recording every call for the past week. She slumped back against the couch like someone had cut her strings. Were you ever going to tell me? I asked. Or were you just going to keep this going until you got caught or until one of us died? I don't know. Her voice broke. I don't know what I was thinking. You were thinking about yourself, about what you wanted, about how Victor made you feel young and desired and whatever else you've been missing. Bob, I'm sorry. Are you? She looked up at me, tears streaming down her face. Yes. God. Yes. I never meant for this to happen. I never wanted to hurt you. But you did it anyway. 20 times. I know. 20 times you looked me in the eye over breakfast and lied about where you'd been the night before. I know. 20 times you came home smelling like him and climbed into our bed. Bob, please. Does he know you're married? Of course he knows. Does he care? She didn't answer. Does his wife know? No. I nodded slowly. So, 2 marriages, 2 families. All so you and Victor could play dress up in hotel rooms once or twice a week. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like? She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. I don't know how to explain it. Try. He made me feel alive again, like I mattered, like I was more than just... She gestured around the room. This, our home, our life, everything we'd built together. Well, I said, my voice quieter now, colder. I hope it was worth it. She buried her face in her hands and sobbed, great heaving sobs that shook her whole body. I picked up the recorder from the coffee table, held it in my palm. The marriage is over, Ellen. I'll call the lawyer on Monday. Bob, no, please. We can work through this. No, I said. We can't. She was on her feet now, tissue clutched in her fist, words spilling out fast and desperate. You were never home, Bob. All those years you worked overtime, double shifts, weekends, you were never there. I stood still, let her talk. I raised Sarah alone. I ate dinner alone. I went to bed alone while you were at the plant or the Union Hall or God knows where. Do you have any idea what that was like? I was providing for us. You were hiding. You used work as an excuse to avoid being a husband. I worked so you could stay home with Sarah, so we could keep this house, so you could have the life you wanted. The life I wanted? Her voice pitched higher. I wanted a husband who talked to me, who noticed me, who didn't treat me like a piece of furniture. I never treated you like furniture. You did. You'd come home exhausted, eat whatever I made, fall asleep in that chair, and wake up just in time to go to bed. That was our life, Bob, for 40 years. And that gave you the right to sleep with your supervisor? She flinched, but kept going. Victor listens to me. He asks about my day. He looks at me like I'm still a woman, not just, she waved her hand, not just the person who does the laundry. I never asked you to be just the person who does the laundry. You didn't have to ask. That's what I became. That's what happens when you're married to someone who's married to their job. I let the silence settle, let her words echo in the room. Then I spoke, slow and deliberate. I worked my back into the ground for this family, burned my hands and my lungs so you'd have health insurance and a retirement fund, gave you 42 years of loyalty and faithfulness. And the minute things got boring, the minute you felt unappreciated, you went looking for someone to make you feel special. That's not fair. Life's not fair, Ellen. But marriage is supposed to be. You don't get to rewrite history to make yourself feel better about what you did. She was crying again, but this time it looked different. Angrier, more desperate. What about your mistakes? What about all the times you chose work over me? I made mistakes, I said. I'll own that. But I never betrayed you. Never looked you in the eye and lied about where I was or who I was with. Never broke the one promise that mattered most. She started to respond, then stopped. The fight drained out of her. I held up the recorder. I'm keeping this, just in case Victor decides to lie in court, or his wife comes looking for answers. I want a record of exactly what happened, and who said what. You'd do that. You'd destroy his marriage too? I didn't destroy anything, Ellen. You and Victor did that all on your own. I walked past her toward the stairs, stopped at the bottom. You can sleep in Sarah's old room tonight. I'll take the guest room. On Monday, we'll figure out the rest. I found Victor Lang's car in the Midwest Mutual parking lot on Monday afternoon. Silver Lexus, newer model, parked in the spot marked management. I'd called in sick to the community center, told them I had a stomach thing. Then I drove across town and waited. Ellen had gone to stay with her sister in Medina, left Sunday morning with 2 suitcases, and wouldn't look at me when I held the door open. I'd deal with that later. First, I needed to have a conversation with the man who'd been calling my house at 1:12 a.m. for the last several weeks. Victor came out at 4:47. I knew it was him from the employee photo I'd found online. Tall, fit for 52, salt and pepper hair, expensive suit, the kind of man who looked good in hotel bars and knew it. I got out of my truck and walked across the lot. Victor Lang? He stopped, keys in hand, looked me over. Can I help you? I'm Bob Whitaker, Ellen's husband. His face changed. Not panic exactly, more like the look of a man who'd known this moment was coming and had been dreading it anyway. Mr. Whitaker, I'm not here to hit you, I said. I'm 68 years old and my back's not what it used to be, but I am here to show you something. I pulled the recorder from my jacket pocket, pressed play. His own voice filled the parking lot. Tomorrow night, same time. Then Ellen. Yes, tomorrow. I know. Victor's face went pale, actually pale the same way Ellen's had. I stopped the recording. I've got 11 more just like that one. Different dates, same routine, room numbers, instructions about what to wear. He didn't say anything, just stood there with his keys dangling from one hand. I'm divorcing Ellen, I said. Papers are being filed this week. My lawyer has copies of all the recordings, along with the emails you sent from your work account. Mr. Whitaker, I don't know what to say. Don't say anything. Just listen. A car drove past. Someone walking to their vehicle waved at Victor, and he gave a weak wave back, trying to look normal while his world collapsed. My lawyer tells me that in a no-fault state like Ohio, adultery doesn't change the division of assets much, But it does matter in court if people lie under oath. So here's how this works. Ellen's going to tell the truth in her deposition. You're not going to contact her again. And this recording stays with my lawyer unless I need to use it. Does my wife know? Not yet. That's your problem to solve. He looked down at his shoes. Expensive leather. Polished. The kind of shoes a man wears when he's got money and wants people to know it. I'm sorry, he said quietly. No, you're not. You're sorry you got caught. I put the recorder back in my pocket. I turned to walk away, then stopped. One more thing. Ellen said you made her feel young, made her feel alive. I looked him in the eye. You didn't make her feel anything. You just took advantage of a woman who was bored and flattered and stupid enough to think she could have it both ways. I left him standing there in the parking lot and drove home. She came back on Wednesday to get the rest of her things. I'd spent Tuesday boxing up items that were clearly hers. Toiletries from the bathroom, clothes from the closet, knickknacks from around the house. Stacked them in the living room so she could load them quick and be gone. But she wanted to go through everything herself, said she had a right to choose what she took. So I stood in the bedroom doorway and watched her pack 42 years into suitcases and cardboard boxes. She started with the dresser, pulled out sweaters, folded them carefully, laid them in a large box her sister had brought, didn't look at me once, just moved methodically, drawer by drawer, like she was packing for a trip and not the end of a marriage. The jewelry box on the dresser, I said. That's yours. She stopped, looked at the wooden box I'd given her on our 20th anniversary, custom made by a guy at the plant who did woodworking on the side, her initials carved into the lid. I can't take that. It's yours, Ellen. Bob, take it. She picked it up slowly, opened the lid. Inside were the pearl earrings I'd bought her when Sarah graduated college, the silver bracelet from our 30th anniversary, the wedding ring she'd stopped wearing 2 days ago. She closed the lid, put the box in the suitcase. The closet was next. She pulled out dresses, pants, and blouses, paused at the blue dress on the far right, the one Victor had mentioned on the recording, the one she'd had dry cleaned. She took it off the hanger and stood there holding it, staring at the fabric like it might tell her something. Leave it, I said. She looked up. What? Leave the dress. I don't want it in my house. Her eyes filled with tears, but she didn't argue, just hung it back up and moved on to the next item. By 4 o'clock, the bedroom looked ransacked, half-empty drawers, gaps in the closet, the indent on her side of the mattress where she'd slept for 4 decades suddenly visible and obvious. She taped up the last box, stood in the middle of the room, looking around like she'd forgotten something. I never wanted it to end like this, she said. Neither did I. Bob, please, can't we try? Go to counseling? Work through this? No. Just like that? 42 years and you won't even try? I stepped into the room, picked up one of the boxes. You want to know why I won't try? Because every time I look at you now, I hear that recording. I see you getting dressed to meet him. I think about all the nights you came home and lied to my face, and I realize I don't know who you are anymore. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. I'm still the same person. No, I said. You're not. I carried the box downstairs and out to her sister's car, made 3 more trips until everything was loaded. Ellen followed behind, silent, crying quietly into a tissue. When the last box was in the trunk, she turned to me on the porch. I love you, Bob. You should have thought about that in February. She got in the car. Her sister started the engine. They backed out of the driveway and disappeared down the street. I went inside and closed the door. The house felt enormous. My lawyer's name was Patricia Holden, 61 years old, sharp eyes, no-nonsense attitude. She'd handled the estate when my father passed, and I trusted her to handle this. I sat across from her desk on Thursday morning with the recorder and printed copies of the emails I'd found. She listened to 2 of the recordings, read through the email exchanges, made notes on a yellow legal pad in handwriting so small I couldn't read it upside down. This is pretty clear-cut, she said. Ohio's a no-fault state, so the adultery itself won't affect asset division much, but it does establish a timeline and prevents her from claiming the separation was your fault. I don't want to take her to the cleaners, I said. I just want what's fair. Fair meaning, she gets half the retirement, accounts, half the savings. But I keep the house. I keep the tools in the garage. I bought those with my own money over 40 years. And I want it done quick. No dragging this out for months. Patricia made more notes. The house is the biggest asset. If you're keeping it, you'll need to buy out her share of the equity. That could be significant. How much? She pulled up a calculator, did some quick math based on the assessment value I'd given her. Roughly $85,000. I thought about the retirement account, the savings bonds, the money I'd put away for emergencies. It would hurt, but I could do it. Fine. And the recordings? She asked. You want to submit these as evidence? Only if I have to, if she contests anything or lies in her deposition. Otherwise, I'd just as soon keep this private. Patricia nodded. Understood. I'll draft a settlement proposal. If she agrees and doesn't fight it, we can have this done in 60 to 90 days. What about Victor Lang? What about him? Can he be brought into this? Sued for damages or anything? She shook her head. Ohio eliminated alienation of affection laws decades ago. You can't sue him, but if he tries to interfere or contact you, we can pursue a restraining order. He won't interfere. You sound certain. I am. Ellen's lawyer responded 3 days later. She was willing to settle. Didn't want a court battle. Didn't want the recordings to become public record. The terms were straightforward. I kept the house and bought out her equity. We split the retirement accounts 50-50. She got her car. I got mine. Personal belongings were already divided. No alimony. No ongoing financial ties. Just a clean break. Patricia called me on a Tuesday afternoon. She signed. It's done pending the judge's approval. But that's just a formality. You're officially separated, and the divorce will be final in 60 days. I thanked her, hung up, sat at the kitchen table staring at the wall where Ellen's collection of ceramic roosters used to sit. She'd taken them when she packed, left behind small rectangular shadows in the dust. 42 years reduced to a legal document and a check for $85,000. I thought I'd feel something. Relief, maybe, or grief, or anger. But mostly I just felt tired and ready for whatever came next. The first night alone, I didn't know what to do with myself. Made a frozen dinner around 6, ate it standing at the counter, washed the single plate, the single fork, put them in the dish rack to dry. The house was too quiet. I turned on the TV just for the noise, some documentaries about World War II, watched without really seeing it. At 8:30, I turned off the TV and sat on the front porch. October evening, cool, but not cold. The street lights came on one by one. Mr. Henderson, 2 doors down, was mowing his lawn, even though it was almost dark. The smell of cut grass drifted over. I grabbed a beer from the fridge, first one I'd had in weeks, sat there sipping it slowly, watching the neighborhood settle in for the night. A car drove past, then another. Someone walking a dog waved, and I waved back. Normal life continued like nothing had changed. But everything had changed. The house behind me felt different now. Not empty, exactly. Just mine. No one else's energy in it. No one else's routines. No one was waiting up to make sure I locked the doors or turned off the coffee pot. Just me. I thought about Ellen. Wondered where she was staying long term. Her sister's place in Medina, probably. Or maybe she'd already found an apartment. Started over. I thought about Victor Lang. Wondered if he'd told his wife yet. Wondered what excuse he'd given when Bob Whitaker showed up in the parking lot with a recording that could blow up his whole life. Mostly, though, I thought about the phone. That landline sitting on the nightstand upstairs. For 3 weeks it had rung at 1:12 a.m. Every single night is like clockwork. Victor's voice, Ellen's whispered responses. The routine that had eaten away at our marriage, one late-night call at a time. Now it was silent. No more calls. No more lies. No more lying awake, wondering what they were saying to each other while I pretended to sleep. Just silence. I finished the beer, set the empty bottle on the porch rail, looked up at the stars starting to show through the twilight. 68 years old, divorced, living alone in a house that had been built for a family. Part of me wanted to be angry about it. I wanted to rage at the injustice of working my whole life to build something only to watch it collapse because Ellen got bored. But anger takes energy, and I was tired of being angry. So I just sat there in the cool evening, listening to the crickets, watching the neighborhood lights wink on in windows up and down the street. Later, I went inside, locked the door, climbed the stairs to the bedroom, got into bed on my side, the same side I'd slept on for 42 years. I closed my eyes, and for the first time in 3 weeks, I slept through the night. No phone calls, no racing heart, no lies echoing in the darkness, just sleep, deep and dreamless, and finally, blessedly quiet. Sarah came by the second Sunday after Ellen left, showed up at 10 in the morning with her husband Mike and the 3 kids, Emma, who's 12, Lucas, who's 9, and little Abby, who just turned 6. I was in the garage organizing the workbench when I heard the car pull up. Came out to find Emma already halfway up the driveway, Lucas right behind her. "Grandpa Bob!" Emma hit me like a linebacker, wrapped her arms around my waist and squeezed. Lucas followed suit, and then Abby came running up, pigtails bouncing, demanding her turn. Sarah stood by the car watching. Her eyes were red. She'd been crying, I could tell. She knew about the divorce. I'd told her the basics over the phone, spared her the worst details, and she'd taken it hard. "I wasn't sure if you'd want company," she said. "I always want to see my grandkids." She smiled, thin, but real. Mike shook my hand. "Good man, Mike. Electrician. Works hard, treats Sarah right. Coaches Lucas's little league team. Kids have been asking about you all week," he said. We went inside. The kids scattered immediately. Emma to the living room to look at old photo albums, Lucas to the garage to see my tools, Abby to the kitchen to draw pictures at the table like she always did. Sarah made coffee. We sat at the table while Abby worked on a drawing of what she said was a dinosaur, but looked more like a lopsided dog. "How are you holding up?" Sarah asked quietly. "One day at a time. Mom called me. She's staying with Aunt Linda." "I know. She wants to see the kids." I sipped my coffee. "They're your kids. That's your decision. But I want to know how you feel about it." I looked at Abby, tongue sticking out in concentration as she colored. "She's still their grandmother. What happened between Ellen and me doesn't change that." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "Dad, I'm so sorry. I had no idea she was... I should have seen something. Nobody saw it coming. That's how these things work. I'm angry at her. I don't know if I can forgive her." "You will, eventually, because she's your mother, and because staying angry takes too much energy." We sat in silence for a while. Lucas came back from the garage carrying a socket wrench set. "Grandpa, can you teach me how to fix bikes? Emma's has a wobbly wheel." "Sure can. Grab your jacket. We'll do it in the driveway." The next 2 hours I spent showing Lucas how to true a bicycle wheel. Emma came out and watched, asked if I could teach her too. So I showed them both how to use the spoke wrench, how to check for wobble, how to make small adjustments until everything ran smooth. Mike helped Abby ride her tricycle up and down the sidewalk. Sarah sat on the porch steps, drinking coffee and watching us all. When they left that afternoon, the kids hugged me again, made me promise they could come back next Sunday. "Every Sunday if you want," I said. After they drove away, I stood in the driveway for a long time, watching the empty street, feeling something shift inside my chest. The house was still too quiet. The divorce was still raw. The betrayal still stung. But the kids still called me Grandpa Bob. They still looked at me the same way they always had. Still wanted to learn from me and be around me. That mattered more than I knew how to say. Word got around that I had time on my hands. First it was Mrs. Patterson 3 houses down. Knocked on my door on a Tuesday morning, asking if I could look at her fence gate. The latch had broken, and she couldn't get it to close right. I grabbed my toolbox and walked over. It took me 20 minutes to weld a new bracket and rehang the gate so it swung smoothly. "What do I owe you?" she asked. "Nothing. Consider it a favor." "Bob, I can't just..." "Mrs. Patterson, you brought me a casserole after my mother died. We're even." She thanked me 6 times before I could get back to my own driveway. 2 days later, Mr. Henderson stopped me while I was checking the mail. His trailer hitch had cracked, and he couldn't afford to take it to a shop. think you could patch it?" he asked. "I know you used to weld at Goodyear." I looked at it that afternoon. Clean break in the steel frame. Easy fix if you had the equipment. "Bring it by Saturday morning. I'll have it done by lunch." Saturday he showed up at 8 with the trailer. I welded the crack, reinforced it with a plate, and ground it smooth. He tried to pay me $50 and I waved him off. "Buy me a beer sometime. We'll call it square." By November, I had a little routine going. Tuesday and Thursday mornings, I'd volunteer at the community center, sorting donated tools like I used to. Wednesday afternoons, I'd stop by St. Paul's to see if Father Mike needed anything fixed. Turns out the church always needed something fixed. Handrails on the steps, brackets for the nativity scene, a wobbly gate on the cemetery fence. I'd show up with my tools and Father Mike would walk me through what needed doing. "You're a godsend, Bob," he said one afternoon while I was repairing a metal bench near the parish hall. "Just keeping busy. It's more than that. People notice. They see you out here helping, asking for nothing in return. That means something." I didn't know what to say to that, so I just kept working. The widows started calling too. Mrs. Chen, whose husband had passed 2 years ago, needed her porch railing reinforced. Mrs. Kowalski needed a storm door rehung. Mrs. Brennan's mailbox post had rusted through and needed replacing. I'd show up, do the work, and refuse payment. Most of them would send me home with cookies or pie or leftover soup. My freezer started filling up with casserole dishes and containers labeled in shaky handwriting. One evening, I ran into Tom Mercer again at the hardware store. He looked at the supplies in my cart, welding rod, metal brackets, screws, and shook his head. "Bob, you're retired. You're supposed to be fishing and watching TV. I'll fish when I'm dead." He laughed. "Still the same stubborn bastard. Stubborn's what got me through 41 years at Goodyear. Heard about you and Ellen. I'm sorry. Don't be. It is what it is. For what it's worth," he said. "Everyone who knows you knows you're a good man. Whatever happened, that doesn't change." I nodded, paid for my supplies, drove home. That night I sat on the porch with another beer and thought about what Tom had said. Good man, same as I'd always been. The divorce hadn't changed that. Ellen's betrayal hadn't changed that. I was still Bob Whitaker, still the guy who showed up and did the work and helped when people needed help. That was enough. I wrote the letter on a Sunday afternoon in December. The grandkids had just left after their weekly visit. The house felt quiet again, but it was a different kind of quiet now. Not empty, just still. I sat at the kitchen table with a yellow legal pad and a pen and started writing. "Ellen, I'm writing this, knowing I'll never send it. This is for me, not you. A way to get thoughts out of my head so they'll stop rattling around in there at 3 in the morning. I forgive you, not because you asked for it, or because you deserve it. Not even because I'm particularly noble or saintly. I forgive you, because carrying anger around is like carrying a bucket of hot coals. It doesn't hurt you. It hurts me. I forgive you so I can sleep at night, so I can sit with my grandkids without your ghost hovering over every conversation, so I can move forward instead of staying stuck in February when all this started. But forgiveness doesn't mean I've forgotten. I remember every lie, every 1:12 a.m. phone call, every morning you looked me in the eye over breakfast and pretended nothing was wrong. I remember the blue dress and the hotel rooms and Victor Lang's voice on that recording. I remember all of it, and I always will. You said I was never home, that I worked too much, that I treated you like furniture instead of a wife. Maybe there's truth in that. Maybe I should have paid more attention, should have asked more questions, should have made you feel seen. But here's the thing, Ellen. Being unhappy doesn't give you permission to betray someone. Feeling unappreciated doesn't justify 8 months of deliberate lies. You had choices. You could have talked to me, gone to counseling, even asked for a divorce. Instead, you chose Victor. You chose hotel rooms and secret phone calls and a life built on deception. That was your decision, not mine. I spent 42 years believing in us, believing in you, and you threw it away because someone made you feel young again for a few hours a week. I hope it was worth it. The grandkids ask about you. Sarah's struggling with whether to let them see you. I told her that's her choice to make. You're still their grandmother. What you did to me doesn't change what you are to them. But I won't lie to them if they ask what happened. I won't paint you as a villain, but I won't cover for you either. They deserve the truth, age appropriately, when the time comes. I've started rebuilding, small steps, helping neighbors, fixing things, spending time with the kids every Sunday, finding purpose in the everyday work of being useful. It's not the life I planned at 69, but it's the life I've got, and I'm making the most of it. I hope you find whatever it was you were looking for with Victor. I hope it makes you happy. I hope you look back on our 43 years and remember at least some of it fondly, because despite everything, I don't hate you. I'm disappointed. I'm hurt. I'm angry some days, but I don't hate you. I just don't love you anymore, and that might be the saddest part of all. Take care of yourself, Ellen. Bob. I read it through twice. I folded it carefully, put it in an envelope with no address. Then I walked to the garage, opened the metal filing cabinet where I kept important papers, and filed it under personal. Someday, maybe years from now, I'd read it again, or maybe I'd throw it away without ever looking at it. But for now, it has served its purpose. The words were out of my head and onto paper, and I could finally let them go. If you've made it this far, thank you for listening. I know this isn't an easy story to hear. It's not an easy story to tell, but I'm telling it because I think there are men out there who need to hear it. Men who've felt that same knot in their gut when something doesn't add up. Men who've ignored warning signs because it was easier than facing the truth. So here's what I learned. Take it or leave it. First, trust your gut. If something feels wrong, it probably is. I ignored those midnight phone calls for weeks because I didn't want to believe my wife of 42 years could be lying to me. But deep down, I knew. My gut knew, and I should have acted on it sooner. You don't need proof to ask questions. You don't need evidence to start paying attention. If your instincts are screaming at you, listen. Second, keep records. When I finally decided to find out the truth, I didn't go in blind. I bought that recorder. I saved the emails. I documented everything. And when it came time to sit across from Ellen and confront her, I had facts. Not accusations, not suspicions. Facts. In a divorce, facts matter. In court, facts matter. Don't rely on memory. Don't rely on promises. Write things down. Record conversations if your state allows it. Build a case like you're preparing for trial, because you might be. Third, stay calm. I never yelled at Ellen. Never threw anything. Never let my anger turn me into someone I wasn't. And that wasn't because I'm some kind of saint. It's because losing control means losing power. When you stay calm, you stay in control. You make better decisions. You don't say things you'll regret later. And you maintain your dignity, which is worth more than any momentary satisfaction you'd get from screaming. Fourth, get a good lawyer. Patricia Holden saved me thousands of dollars and months of misery because she knew what she was doing. She turned my recordings and emails into leverage. She negotiated a fair settlement without dragging me through a long, expensive court battle. Don't try to do this alone. Don't rely on Google and good intentions. Hire a professional who's been through this 100 times and knows how to protect your interests. Fifth, remember who you are. The hardest part of all this wasn't the betrayal or the divorce or even the loneliness afterward. It was the voice in my head asking if maybe I deserved it, if maybe I'd been a bad husband. Maybe Ellen was right to go looking for someone better. But here's the truth. You can make mistakes and still not deserve to be betrayed. You can be flawed and still deserve loyalty. You can work too much and forget anniversaries and still be a good man who didn't earn what happened to you. Don't let someone else's choices rewrite your story. Finally, life goes on. I'm 70 years old now, living alone in a house built for a family. Some days that feels like failure, but most days it just feels like life. I've got my grandkids, my tools, my neighbors, my church. Small purpose built one day at a time. It's not the ending I wanted, but it's an ending I can live with. And if you're going through something similar right now, I want you to know you'll get through it too. One day at a time, one choice at a time. You'll survive, and eventually, You'll be okay. My name is still Robert Whitaker. I'm 69 now, almost 70. I am still living in Akron, Ohio. Still in the same brick house Ellen and I bought in 1979, though it's just mine now. It's been a year since the divorce was finalized. 13 months since the last 1:12 a.m. phone call. The landline is still connected, but I unplugged it from the bedroom months ago. Put it in a drawer in the guest room. Don't even think about it anymore. The house feels different now. Smaller in some ways, bigger in others. I've rearranged a few things, moved the furniture around, hung some old photos of Sarah and the grandkids in the hallway, where Ellen's ceramic roosters used to sit. The grandkids still come every Sunday. Emma's teaching me how to use a smartphone. I finally broke down and bought one. Lucas is getting good with tools. Abby still draws pictures of dinosaurs that look like dogs. Sarah's doing better. She talks to Ellen once a week, lets the kids see her every other month. I don't ask about it, and she doesn't volunteer details. That's Ellen's life now, not mine. I still help the neighbors, still fix things at the church, still keep busy because busy is better than sitting around thinking about what used to be. Some mornings I wake up and forget, just for a second, that Ellen's not there. I'll roll over expecting to see her side of the bed occupied and find it empty, the blanket smooth and untouched. Those moments sting, but they come less often now. I don't regret confronting her, don't regret the divorce, don't regret keeping that recording or hiring Patricia Holden or handling it all the way I did. I did what needed to be done with as much dignity as I could manage, and that's all any man can do when his world falls apart. Ellen tried to call once, about 6 months ago. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail saying she wanted to talk, wanted closure, and wanted to explain some things better. I deleted it without listening all the way through. Some conversations don't need to happen. Some doors are better left closed. If you've watched this whole story, leave a comment and let me know where you're from. Hit that subscribe button if this resonated with you. And remember, no matter what you're going through right now, you're tougher than you think. The phone doesn't ring at 1:12 a.m. anymore, and that's just fine with me.